The next one is materiality principle. And what it states is that if the amount is not large enough to influence the decision of investors or decision makers, a misclassification or omission is not material. If there is an asset with a useful life of 10 years that costs only $25, right? So an example would be calculator. Some of the calculators last many years, right? So in this case, if we look at a calculator which cost us only $25, but we know its useful life is 10, maybe even more years, right? But according to the principle of materiality, if we prefer to expense that asset immediately, basically not record it as an asset, instead record it as an expense in the income statement, we can do that. This is allowed. So in this case, we don't have to match the useful life of the asset with the allocation of its cost. Okay, so this is kind of an exception principle where only if the amounts are small enough, you can choose to ignore some of the other accounting principles, or you can even choose to ignore some of the practices. Materiality varies by size of organization. So if it's a very large organization, of course, its materiality would be larger. Its amounts that are considered small or immaterial would be larger. But if it's a small organization, the amount that is considered immaterial will be smaller. Based on this principle, many organizations have a policy to record as expense asset costing less than a certain amount. So you will see that very often that many organizations have an amount identified already, that any amount that is less than this amount, for example, let's say $5,000. So a company may have a policy that any amount that is less than a $5,000, even though the nature of that item is an asset, it's an asset which has a useful life of more than a year, still for accounting purposes that amount will be recorded immediately. So entire amount will be recorded as an expense in the month of purchase. Revenue recognition principle. So the principle states that we have to record revenue as and when goods or services are delivered, regardless of when cash is received. So it's a combination of accrual and matching, focusing on revenue. An example is when a product is sold for credit, revenue is recorded when product is delivered, not when cash is received. Okay. Similarly, when revenue is related to a project work, so it's a long project, it takes some time over which it's completed. Revenue is recorded based on percentage of completion, not when payments are received. So while the company may receive advance payments of, let's say, 50% on a project, they will record revenue based on the percentage of completion of that project. And there are very specific guidelines in the standards on how to record the revenue in accordance with percentage of completion principle. Consistency principle. We need to consistently apply accounting principles, policies, and methods unless a better one is available. And this is again to help the users of the financial statements, the decision makers, understand the performance of the business over multiple periods of time. If the company is changing its accounting policies and principles, which also may change the treatment of accounting entries or assets, liabilities, income, expenses in the financial statements, then it is difficult for the decision makers to make decisions because they cannot compare the financial result between periods. An example is a straight line method of depreciation. So we discussed about an asset with a useful life of 10 years. The company may choose either a straight line method to record depreciation, which is really total cost of the asset divided by 10, and then that is the amount that is recorded every year. Or they could also choose a reducing balance method, which is not an equal allocation of depreciation over the useful life. It's actually dependent on certain other factors, which will result in higher depreciation being recorded in the first year or in the earlier years, and then the amount of depreciation reduces every year. The company is allowed to choose any one of those methods, but if they have chosen one, the consistency principle requires that they continue to use that method over a long period of time, unless there is a significant reason, a major reason to make the change, and it is better for the users of financial statements to have to make that change. Another example is the capitalization policy we just discussed. For example, the amount of materiality, the amount considered as the threshold under which all amounts are recorded as expense instead of assets. The company should not change it every year, right? There should be a consistency in applying that threshold. So now we will go back to the rules of debit and credit. I think we have developed a very good understanding of assets, liabilities, equity, income, and expenses. We've also learned some of the key accounting principles. We already know the rules of debit and credit. So I think it's a good time to do some practice on the accounting entries. And after we have done that practice, we'll look at the flow of accounting entries into general ledger, trial balance, and finally financial statements such as balance sheet and income statement.